On November 12, 2025, Taiwan experienced one of its most devastating hydrometeorological disasters in recent years when Typhoon Fung-wong struck the eastern and southern regions of the island, triggering extreme rainfall, flash floods, and landslides that caused widespread damage, massive evacuations, and injuries to dozens of residents. This disaster occurred outside the normal typhoon season, raising serious questions about changing weather patterns and infrastructure preparedness amid the global climate crisis. Typhoon Fung-wong, which had previously battered the Philippines with high winds and extreme rainfall, moved northward and struck Taiwan with surprising intensity. The worst affected areas were the eastern and southern coasts, including the city of Suao in Yilan County, as well as the mountainous regions of Hualien and Taitung. In Suao, rainfall reached 648 millimeters in less than 24 hours, causing rivers to overflow and floodwaters to sweep away homes, schools, and public facilities. The Taiwanese government immediately activated emergency protocols and evacuated more than 8,300 residents from flood and landslide-prone areas. The evacuations were carried out with the assistance of the military, which deployed rubber boats, armored vehicles, and helicopters to reach isolated areas. Many residents were trapped on the second floors of their homes as water reached neck-deep, while mud and debris blocked access to main roads. At least 51 people were reported injured, mostly from falling buildings or being swept away by strong currents. The flash floods also caused severe damage to vital infrastructure. Power and communications were disrupted in several areas, while major railways and highways were completely paralyzed by floodwaters and landslides. Schools were closed, and thousands of students were forced to study from home or in evacuation centers. Hospitals in the affected areas experienced a surge in patients, especially those suffering from minor injuries, hypothermia, and respiratory problems caused by exposure to mud and dirty water. One of the main factors exacerbating the flooding was the drainage system, which was unable to cope with the large volume of water in such a short time. Although Taiwan has a relatively advanced flood control system, the intensity of rain brought by Fung-wong exceeded the design capacity of many cities' drainage systems. Furthermore, rapid urbanization and development on hillside areas have increased the risk of flooding and landslides by reducing soil absorption and accelerating surface runoff. In a press conference held the day after the disaster, officials from Taiwan's Central Weather Bureau stated that the typhoon was a meteorological anomaly influenced by the interaction of the northeast monsoon and the remnants of a tropical storm from the western Pacific. They emphasized that global climate change has increased the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events, and that Taiwan must prepare for more such events in the future. The Taiwanese president visited an evacuation center in Yilan and expressed condolences to the victims and promised emergency relief and a speedy recovery. The central government allocated special funds for infrastructure rehabilitation, social assistance, and improvements to early warning systems. Furthermore, discussions on spatial planning policy reform and strengthening drainage systems have resurfaced in Parliament, with strong support from civil society and academia. Amid the crisis, the solidarity of the Taiwanese people was evident. Volunteers from various humanitarian organizations, students, and local residents worked together to clear mud, distribute food, and provide psychological support to the victims. Local and international media highlighted the spirit of mutual cooperation as an exemplary example of social resilience. However, beneath the spirit of recovery, there was also a deepening reflection on the systemic vulnerabilities facing Taiwan. Many experts advocated the need for new approaches to urban planning, environmental conservation, and disaster risk management. They emphasized that flash floods are not simply natural phenomena, but rather the result of a complex interaction between meteorological factors, spatial planning, and development policies. A post-disaster report released by Taiwan's Ministry of the Interior stated that more than 1,000 homes suffered severe damage and economic losses were estimated at billions of Taiwanese dollars. The report also recommended enhancing local emergency response capacity, training communities in self-evacuation, and integrating real-time weather data with community warning systems. The long-term impacts of the flash floods that struck Taiwan in November 2025, caused by Typhoon Fung-wong, are expected to impact various sectors of society and government, creating multidimensional challenges that require an integrated, sustainable, and policy-based response, as well as systemic adaptation to climate change and disaster risk. Socially, thousands of residents directly affected by the floods, particularly those who lost homes, family members, or livelihoods, will face a long and complex recovery process, including relocation to safer areas, community rebuilding, and psychological recovery from the trauma of being trapped in strong currents, loss of possessions, and uncertainty about the future. Children whose education is disrupted by school closures and displacement to evacuation centers are at risk of declining academic performance and impaired emotional development, while the elderly and people with disabilities face additional challenges in accessing adequate health care and social support. Economically, damage to vital infrastructure such as roads, bridges, railways, power systems, and communications facilities will place a significant burden on the national and local government budgets, which will need to allocate emergency funds for physical rehabilitation and the restoration of public services. The agricultural sector, the backbone of the economy in many affected areas, suffered significant losses due to mud-soaked land, damaged crops, and disrupted crop distribution, threatening local food security and farmers' incomes. Small and medium-sized industries, particularly those dependent on land supply chains and transportation, face reduced production and potential bankruptcy if they do not receive immediate capital assistance and access to alternative markets. Furthermore, the tourism sector, a key source of foreign exchange for Taiwan, is likely to experience a decline in visits due to the image of the disaster and damage to natural tourist destinations in the eastern and southern regions. Environmentally, flash floods have had a devastating impact on local ecosystems, as torrents and landslides erode hillsides, destroy vegetation, and pollute rivers and coastlines with mud, household waste, and chemicals from submerged industrial facilities. This damage has the potential to disrupt the ecological balance, destroy wildlife habitats, and increase the risk of further disasters such as waterborne disease outbreaks, soil degradation, and deterioration of air and drinking water quality. In the long term, environmental recovery requires systematic restoration efforts, including reforestation, rehabilitation of critical land, and strengthening watershed conservation. This must involve active community participation and cross-sectoral policy support. In the realm of public policy, this flash flood represents a crucial turning point for the Taiwanese government to reevaluate its approach to development, spatial planning, and disaster risk management. It has been demonstrated that existing drainage and early warning systems were inadequate to anticipate the extreme rainfall intensity brought by the unseasonal typhoon. Urgent policy reforms include revising infrastructure design standards to be more resilient to extreme weather events, restricting development in flood and landslide-prone areas, and integrating real-time meteorological data into a community-wide warning system that is easily accessible to residents. The government also needs to strengthen local emergency response capacity, including volunteer training, providing disaster logistics, and conducting regular evacuation drills to better prepare communities for similar disasters in the future. Furthermore, this flood provides an opportunity for a cultural transformation of preparedness and social solidarity, as the Taiwanese community demonstrated a remarkable spirit of mutual cooperation in assisting victims, clearing mud, and distributing aid. This spirit can serve as a foundation for building a network of resilient communities capable of adapting to climate change and disaster risks through disaster education, strengthening local organizations, and collaboration between government, academia, the private sector, and civil society. In the global context, Taiwan can also strengthen climate diplomacy and regional cooperation in disaster mitigation, sharing experiences and technologies with other countries facing similar challenges. The flash floods triggered by Typhoon Fung-wong were not merely a tragedy, but a turning point for Taiwan to strengthen climate resilience, improve risk management, and build a safer future for future generations. In every mudslide cleared and every home rebuilt, there is hope that Formosa will emerge stronger, wiser, and better prepared to face the unexpected challenges of nature.
Mm-hmm.